those 3 years of me and my brother doing 5 deals a month, from working out of our house that he lived with me in, two separate computers, and kind of like running from appointment to appointment because all face-to-face sales at that point we were doing. I wish I went bigger earlier. I wish I got myself back into those rooms earlier, so that way I could be where I am now 3 years ago, and then who knows where I've been.
I think that's
now.
the same exact. Hey everybody, thank you for joining us for today's episode of the Real Estate Disruptors. So we've got Alex Quezada with Vault Ventures, and Alex flew in from Orlando, Florida to share how he's raised over $30 million in private money. Now, I am on a mission to create 100 millionaires. The information on this podcast alone is enough to help you become a millionaire in the next 5 to 7 years. If you take consistent action, you will become one. And we also know the fastest way to become a millionaire is to get good at sales. And our sales community was launched a couple of weeks ago, and the community members are already closing more sales. If you haven't checked it out, go to salesdisruptors.com to surround yourself with sales assassins from across the country. The show is also brought to you by our sister company, InvestorLift. Get access to over 2 million cash buyers across the country. Go to InvestorLift.com, put in Disruptors to get 10% off. And guys, if you get value today, please hit that subscribe button. That way we can all grow together. So, Alex, what was your life like right before you got into real estate?
Was a UCF graduate with a finance degree. Started working for travel club, like a face-to-face timeshare type business where we traveled around to different retirement communities selling essentially timeshare access.
Retirement communities.
Yeah.
That's different. Normally you hear like you have them at like resorts.
Yeah.
Right? And like when you like to stay at a resort like this fairly like more often.
Yeah.
So you went to the prospects.
Yep. So we would set up like I had like a hotel off a highway. We would send out the company would send out marketing to say like, free cruises for two, and then people would show up, say, I came for a free cruise. Like, yes, but you have to go to this presentation. We'll show you how to get all these nice cruises and have access to timeshares. And so I would have like a face-to-face conversation with them for like 10, 15 minutes. And then they would go into a presentation for about an hour or so, come out of the presentation, and we got to sell them right there on buying the package.
Gotcha. Okay. So you had just graduated UCF.
Yep.
So right out of college in finance, you're jumping right into, I would say, depending on perspective, hardcore closing.
So I actually went into try to be a mortgage broker, but it was 2008. So that was bad timing for that. I got training, was going to get into that direction, but then that didn't pan out. So I went into, I found an opportunity at this face-to-face sales opportunity.
Yeah. Was it like, was it Seashell? What was it? There's Star. There's all these different ones.
Yeah, Westgate is a huge one. Yeah.
Okay.
Blue Green.
So I imagine you got pretty good at sales in a very really short period of time.
Yeah, it was. I didn't really have. I was always kind of like entrepreneur type, but I didn't have like that real skill set. But learning from literally just seeing my managers like interact with seller, like with the prospects, the customers, and just kind of like regurgitating what they were saying and putting it in my own words. And they handed me books and like taught me, to learn about it and read books about it. And quickly I became the top seller for the last 2 years I was there.
Really?
Yeah.
Got it. So I guess, what did you learn? You series of books and so on, but like, what kind of formal training did you have? Because like, we do sales training, but we are not corporate.
Yeah.
Right? In fact, we're probably anti-corporate. We're pretty, what's the word? Non-PC.
Yeah.
Right? Did you have like corporate sales training, or it was still like get out there and go figure it out?
This was not corporate sales training. There was training like every morning that did sales training, and we'd come in every so often and have like group training for like a longer periods of time, but definitely not corporate. We were like going to little hotel communities, retirement communities, doing the pitches all day, partying at night, next morning, like doing the pitches again. So it was kind of like we could make a movie out of it, almost like we joked about. So
got it.
Not corporate at all.
Got it. So you did this, you started in 2008, and you did that for how long?
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
How relevant was that experience into getting into wholesale?
Super relevant. Like it was everything. It's all marketing and sales here. And so if you don't have that sales skill, you really can't do much. Like I'm in a couple different masterminds, and some of them where people can have all the systems and processes in place, but if you can't close, you're not going to be successful.
Got it. And then you did that for 3 years.
Yep.
You were top guy for the last 2. What'd you do after that? How'd you get well, I guess in that you were licensed probably, right? As a realtor.
No, I didn't get a license until I got into real estate. So while I was doing that, I was learning about real estate. I heard an ad online from Ronald Grant. Went to that seminar that was like $500, and then
Not too far from you.
Yep, not too far from me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I bought that boot camp, which was like back then like a sales pitch fest. So I literally bought all the products.
Yeah.
And then just was like learning it for like a year, and then kind of like dabbling. But we were going out of town for that job from like Thursday to Sunday, So I only had like Monday, Tuesday really to do anything with it, and so I just couldn't take action. And then I was like, I'm gonna choose one or the other. I don't really want to do this my whole life, face-to-face sales with timeshare. And it was good. It was good, great experience. But I believed in it a lot because I got to utilize it. But if you don't use it, you're not worth it. And so it's kind of like, timeshare has a bad stigma. So it's kind of like that.
What was it? So since then, right? Because you learned from Ron LeGrand.
Yep.
I imagine he was teaching it. And since then, you've been in rooms with him as colleagues.
Yeah.
How has that been?
It's definitely it's awesome to be able to get to a position where he still obviously has a lot more education than me. He's been a lot more
way
time,
more seasoned,
a lot more experience. But it's awesome to be in those rooms with those folks and be able to hold your own and say you've done and put into action what they taught you.
Right. Okay. So you listen to this ad, you go to Ron LeGrand event, you go through the pitch fest, get the upsell, all that good stuff. Hey, it is what it is.
Yeah.
What did you do with that information?
So at first I was just learning. I didn't really, I started dabbling on putting, some of it into action, but I didn't really take action so much because of my job of going out of town all the time. Like I had put out marketing and they wanted to see me go to the property on a Thursday. I couldn't be there.
Right.
So I kind of just kept on learning and reading through all the books, really educating myself. And then I just told myself, hey, I'm going to quit and go all in on real estate. Because I liked it, and being at those events, I saw people on the stage. I was like, man, I didn't even graduate high school, and I flew here on a jet. And so I'm like, well, I'm actually smart, so I know I can do this. And so I just had to go all in and just cut off the job.
You're trying to do it on the side.
Yep.
And it just didn't work.
It did not work with that job in place.
Okay. And so then you quit, and now you're all in.
Yep.
You have a bunch of money in the bank account when you quit?
I had money. But back then it was like a lot of REOs. So we were making a lot of REO offers. And that's how we really get our first couple deals was how I got my first couple deals was through REOs.
Got it. Okay. So you're buying foreclosures.
Yep.
From banks through the MLS, more or less.
Yep.
Got it. Okay. So then with Ron LeGrand, were you learning at that time creative, selling papers, or buying a flip?
I was learning through him. Subject to buying creative financing. I had some appointments like that. I just wasn't able to really get the sellers when I had no property, had like really no experience to give me their properties with their mortgages in place.
Well, it was really tough at that time because people have very little equity.
Yep.
So creative is a great strategy, not as great in declining market.
Correct. Yeah. So for us, that didn't really work so much. And it was actually Preston Ely's REO Rockstar that really got me going to the REOs. And so from Ron LeGrand, I got connected with all these other guys who were doing business and just continued to educate myself and get into those rooms with those type of people, Freedom Soft, Fortune Builders, those kind of guys, Kent Clothier, and then was able to really just continue to educate myself and take action on everything that I was learning.
So get me up to speed. Preston Ely.
Yeah.
What exactly did you learn from Preston Ely?
A lot of about mindset was very big. Affirmations, playing the movie forward, manifesting like what you put into your life.
Right.
And then the REO stuff just really ignited with me. Like it just connected with me. Like I can do this. And it was just from the computer, dealing with agents. It's kind of not so emotional because I'm working with the agents, not the sellers. And it was easily to get deals done. But I was still missing something in my business. I was like, man, I should be doing more deals. I did a couple deals. And then I went to like a REIA meeting where I was looking for like a mentor in my market. And the guy's like, well, I don't really want to mentor somebody. I want to like an employee. And I was like, okay, well, he's like, I just don't want you to leave me and like, I teach you everything and you leave me in a couple weeks, a month. And so I'm a very loyal person. I say what I'm going to do. And he hired me. And in like a week, I learned what I was missing. I just wasn't estimating repairs correctly, but I'm a man of my word. I stuck with him. I worked with him for almost 3 years and like ran his wholesale business pretty much while he did new builds and rehabs.
So you knew something, you were short somewhere and you couldn't quite pin it. And then just working with this guy a very short period of time, I was like, oh, obviously, I'm not great at underwriting.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So we're going back to the REO at that time. What were you doing with the properties, right? So, we talked about it on Certainty Talks last week. Real estate basically is pretty simple. How do you find a distressed property? What do you do with it?
Yeah.
So the REO part, that's easy. You found it. What were you doing with that property?
I was literally just littering the area with bandit signs, and I would sell them like that.
To who?
To other investors. My first sale was actually somebody who's going to live in the property and they just had the capital. It was a cheap property. I think it was like $45,000 on Wolf Street, Pine Hills, and sold it with bandit sign. And then going to those REIA meetings, I would build a buyer's list from having a sponsored table, people coming up to us looking for deals, and just building a buyer's list. Right now we have I put an emphasis on that, building a buyer's list for when I worked for that guy for the wholesale company. I did both. I did acquisitions and dispositions. So I was constantly building a buyer's list, and we probably have one of the strongest buyer's lists in Central Florida right now.
So you would just buy these properties close to asking price?
No, we were definitely getting them, below market.
So you buy super deep.
Yep.
Well, below market, but like below, because like REOs are priced to sell.
Yeah.
So are you buying it like significantly below asking price, or?
Typically they would be below the asking price, and we would sell it slightly below the asking price, but many times we would sell it above asking. We would just get there first and get there with a strong offer, and we would know we can sell it. And a lot of times buyers would be like, "Hey, this is on the MLS." I'm like, "I know, that's where I got it from."
Right.
And it is.
So there's a lot of power there, right? So like, for the longest time, you look at buying properties, the REO properties. One of the greatest challenges I remember from back when I was doing it on the buyer agent side, and a common complaint was we can't get these freaking agents to answer the phone.
Yeah.
What were you doing to get them to answer the phone?
So essentially what I would do every single morning, I would look at the hot sheets, what's new on market, what came back on market, and what's reduced. And so I would just go through all those properties in the morning, categorize them, pull all the ones I thought were good deals. I would sort them by cheapest price per square foot, go through each one, tag each one that I thought was something that we could work with, then dive into those deeper, and what do we put together offers. And then my brother would, who was like our assistant at the time, would like shoot out the offers, and we would have everything like pre-signed and all that. So we would literally just send out offers on everything. Like we had because it's the same agents typically on those REOs.
Yeah.
So
like
we would have
same 10 realtors all the time.
And same templates. So everything was like pre-filled out. We just had to change the address, price, these certain things. So we can get offers out in 5 minutes. So we were just sending offers. So we weren't even calling agents. We're like, here's an offer, text message, you should have an offer in the inbox.
Got it.
And we're just sending tons of offers, like a couple hundred a month.
So really it was more of a volume game than it was a relationship game.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for us.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And I bring this up, for everyone who's listening. This might sound like a weird conversation, but like I was initially on the buyer side and I hated those REO agents. And then I became the REO agent. And like these guys that were buying from us, like they were the relationship people, right? So I was like, hey, I got this deal. Who do I want to call first?
Yeah.
Right. So I had like my same 3 or 4 buyers I'd always send it to.
So over time, because they have those buyers, we had to sneak ourselves in there and start building relationships, showing them that we can close on the deals and we're real buyers, even though we're wholesaling it. We get them done though. And then we started getting some more, relationships from just the initial volume push.
Right. So you're working the REIA and you're building your buyers list through REIA.
Yep.
Is that something for someone that's listening today you would recommend?
I think so. I think, getting face to face with buyers, building relationships, because that is definitely a relationship business right there.
It is.
Building your buyers, making connections with those guys. I think 100% going to REIAs, even putting out bandit signs. I think that works as well. You should never stop building your buyers list.
Yeah, because we have ASREA, right? Arizona REIA. It's my understanding the largest in the country.
Wow.
And I go there probably like every other month. And I don't put any booths there, right? I just go there and I just pitch my sales training. But There's a month in and month out. There's two that are always there. There's the property management by Avi. What is his name? I'm totally butchering. I feel really bad now. Augie Penev, right? So Augie Penev, his property management company, is always there, month in, month out. I've never missed him there. And another one's Net Worth Realty. And Net Worth Realty has been like at the REIAs, I want to say like since I started going back like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Like they're there every single month. Well, yeah, clearly, right? Yeah. So for everyone that's listening, right, if you're getting started, build your buyers list through the local REIA.
100%. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So you're buying these deals off the MLS, REO properties, and you're basically selling to these guys at near list price, predominantly wholesaling?
Yeah, all wholesale.
Okay. How long did you continue doing that?
So I worked with that gentleman for 3 years. Then I left, and me and my brother did it on our own. And we continued to do the same thing, except obviously we kept all the profit. And then we did that also for roughly 3 years. And we did like 5 deals or so a month for those 3 years. And we thought it was good. I thought it was good because we were keeping all the profits and we were, traveling, having fun, enjoying life. But I went to another event where people were doing 20, 30 deals a month and younger than me. And I was like, that's way better. I need to do that. And so I talked to those guys and I'm like, how are you guys doing this? Like, what are you spending on marketing? I'm like, about $5,000 because most of it was REO. And he's like, yeah, try spending 30. I was like, all right. So I took an Amex card, put 30 grand on it, started doing PPC, increased our direct mail like tenfold. And the next month, 45 days later, we did like 111 grand. And then we just started doing 70, 80, 100, like big numbers now.
Where did you meet these guys?
It was at Kent Clothier's Find and Flip Summit, I think, in like 2017.
2017.
Yeah.
So that was here, or was that?
It was actually. It might have been in Arizona.
Yeah. Because Kent, I mean, he's here a lot.
Yeah.
All right. And I think at that time it was him and Sean
Terry
together.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So you're doing deals. You're feeling pretty good about yourself, and then you show up to an event and you're like, oh, there's like levels to this.
Yeah.
Okay. So then immediately you start spending more on marketing. Along this journey, was there ever any doubt, right? Because you said there was something missing. There was a piece that wasn't quite clicking.
Yeah.
Did you face any doubt along the way?
Not really. Like I'd say pretty positive. Like there was definitely times where I got away from like affirmations and doing those things that like really helped me.
Yeah.
And I remember it was one May, I don't know what year it was. I was like, man, like I don't really have enough money in the bank account because with wholesaling, like deals get, small deals turn to nothing, big deals get smaller, they get postponed, probate issues, this or this. And I'm like, man, like, I'm not gonna have any money coming up. And so I actually like went back and like rewrote goals and affirmations and literally just started speaking my life into existence again. And boom, deals started flowing in again, money started coming early, closings happening earlier, and it just, got me going again. And so sometimes, you get away from what you're doing that's successful and you got to like refocus. But that was pretty much the only time that was kind of a little bit tricky for us. But just getting back to what actually got us there and just the mindset. Mindset's so important. Like I really harp on that and got back on track.
So you mentioned you left that guy that mentored you. He guided you.
Yep.
And you went to go do this with your brother. What were some unexpected surprises going from working with somebody to doing this on your own?
It wasn't. I really wouldn't say it was like so unexpected. Like I was really doing a majority of the wholesale activities, like running everything. And while I was working with him for 3 years, I was spending my own money to go to events and continue to educate myself. And I would bring a lot of that back and say, hey, we should do this and do this. So it's almost like I was running the whole wholesale business. I wish I got a little bit more knowledge from him on rehabs and new builds because he really crushed it at that. I just, I never got that. So that's why I figured it was my time to go and do my own thing. And so really on the wholesale side, it really wasn't much different for me.
Got it. Now you mentioned you were working with your brother. Are you still working with your brother?
Yes, he runs my whole wholesale operation pretty much.
Got it. Okay. And then that was 6 years ago where you went to that event. Somewhere along the way, you started doing self-storage.
That was recently 2.5 years ago. So 2.5 years ago, 2020, we started doing self-storage.
Okay, so you're crushing it. You're doing hundreds of wholesale deals a year.
Yep.
What was the motivation for going from just wholesale to adding self-storage?
So in 2017, we started buying and holding properties a lot, mostly through creative financing. We also bought our first mobile home park. That was through a partner that I actually helped get into real estate. And then he found mobile home parks and he's like, hey, let's do this deal together. I raised the capital for it and helped in the beginning aspects of the property, but he was all in mobile home parks. So we bought a couple together. And so I've already owned, some assets, some commercial assets. I own some apartment buildings as well, with a different partner. And, now that my business, and this was, 2019, 2020, I was pretty much not having to do a lot of the day to day with the wholesale business. My brother was, really, taking ownership of like being the one running the day to day. That I was able to focus on self storage. So I was like, well, let's go build wealth faster instead of buying houses, 1, 2, 3 at a time. Let's go buy bigger and go bigger. And so we started doing self storage, and our first mail campaign, we got a deal and just started off really well for us.
Easy, just like that.
Yeah, it was. It's seller financing. It was like 85% seller financing, 3% interest only. Like solid deal. We just sold it.
You were already doing creative when you got into that.
Yep.
When did just take a step back then? When were you guys doing creative?
And we were in 2017. We really put it into play and started buying assets ourselves and taking them down.
Predominantly in Florida.
All in Florida at that time.
All in Florida. So you're buying properties in Florida using creative financing. And I bring this up because it's a hot topic today, and it's been a hot topic for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But you were doing it before it became trendy.
Yeah.
So who helped you get good at creative?
So obviously I got the knowledge originally from Ronald Grand, but the guy who actually did really reignite it into me was Larry Harbolt. I don't know if you know who that is. He's out Tampa, St. Pete.
Don't recognize the name, but he was in Tampa. He has to be a guru.
And so he was at a local. He was local to my market, so he would come to Orlando REIAs and stuff. And I met him there, bought his course, and he really is the one who kind of propelled it into me to really take action with putting in those offers out.
And I'm asking these questions because we're in Collective Genius together, and we had a breakout session, and I got the honor or privilege to sit in the room where we were talking about creative and self storage.
Yeah.
Right. It's okay, that's cool because I'm not an expert in either one. You got Alex talking about both of them, so it's pretty cool to see how that works. So, how simple was the transition? Just like I was asking you from timeshare to wholesale, how simple or difficult was that transition from creative on a house to creative on self storage?
It's very similar. Almost a little. It's not as easy. You just have to have the right seller. It doesn't work for everybody. That taking a creative offer is still got to find the right person that works for that person. The ones that we have done that were creative. So we've acquired 9 self-storage facilities so far. 3 of the deals have been creative financing. All those gentlemen are wanting to retire.
Yeah.
So it's not like they needed a big chunk of money. I've talked to other sellers that I bought properties from for storage where they're selling this and they want to go develop this land. So obviously a lot of times that might not work because they need that capital to go put it into place. For retirement, it does make sense because you could avoid that big tax hit that they would take, and they like that income each month because that's what they were getting with their self-storage facility. So if we can provide that to them, by structuring seller finance terms, then it makes sense for them. And you're just trying to find the win-win.
Yeah, it's kind of like Eddie Speed, right? Someone I look up to as well. And he basically made it pretty simple. If they have a money problem, it's a cash offer.
Yeah.
If they have a real estate problem, it's a creative offer. And that more or less has been your experience.
Yeah, 100%.
So let's talk about your very first self-storage deal.
Okay.
Right? Hey, you know what? Let's start doing self-storage. So I know typically we talk about, doing your first real estate deal, but it seemed like that wasn't as difficult so long after you quit your job.
Yeah.
Your first self-storage deal. I know you sent out your first mailer, your first batch of mailers, and you got a deal.
Yeah.
How complicated was that transaction?
It wasn't because prior I got coaching. So I got coaching and I knew the questions to ask. I knew how to underwrite them, what to look for, where the add value was, how to look at a profit and loss statement and see where we can, cut expenses, increase the income. And so I had the knowledge beforehand to do
Mhm.
so, and that gave me the confidence to go out there and make offers. And obviously, it's a learning curve. We were learning stuff along the way that probably
Right.
could have done differently and could have been better. You know, we
Sure.
could probably have added more value than we did on that
Mhm.
property. Um, but overall, it was a very smooth process. Like to, especially starting a brand new thing like asset class, like self storage. Like I wanted to know everything.
Right.
So like I super educated myself. But then when we bought the property, like I literally slept on the floor like 2 nights in a row. I wanted to see like what's it like at night. Like does people come by? What's going on? Like, and I literally want
Not
to
in
know
the
everything
parking
about the
lot.
business.
You were
In
sleeping
in the luckily this one had an office, but it had no couches or anything like that. I literally went to like a dollar store and bought like pillows and blankets and stuff.
Okay, so I mean, you're committed.
Super committed.
Sleeping in the office
Yeah.
at a potential property you're going to buy.
Yeah.
Got it. So, and I like this, right? You were saying before you even went off on your own, even though you were working for somebody else, you were investing in your own personal development,
100%.
which is absolutely key, something I'm very passionate about. So you got mentorship from someone that's already doing this.
Yep.
And, there's this fine line, we talk about, you got to take action, get out there, go make a mess, right? There's that line.
Yeah.
And then there's this other line of like, before you do it, go learn from somebody that's already done it. Where do you draw that line? I mean, it sounds like you already made that line, but how did you come to the decision that you made?
Yeah, I definitely am like someone who likes to learn. So I always do that first. But I think what a lot of people mess up on is they try to learn everything before they start, let me go through this whole course before I do anything.
Right.
It's like, hey, if you chapter 1 is marketing, like start marketing. So I talked to somebody else, like speed of implementation is like the most important thing.
Mhm.
You pick something up and it's valuable, like put that into action immediately as quick as possible and then start learning the rest. I think that's a better way to go. So you have to have some knowledge. Otherwise, you can be successful by accident, with probably a good positive mindset about things, but you got to have some education, and that's definitely going to help you skip the line and get there where you want to go further, faster.
Yeah. Another thing too is like, we didn't really touch on this a moment ago, but like you went and worked for somebody at a REIA that you met.
Yeah.
And that's something like we have so many people reach out like, hey, where should I start? And I feel like my answer is never heeded, which is like, go work for somebody.
Yeah.
Right? Like go learn from someone who's actually doing it. Because this, we are in this business.
Yeah.
It's hard for you and I to look out into the social media spectrum and figure out who's real and who's not. We're in this business
Yeah.
and we can't tell who's real and who's not.
100%.
How can someone who's not in this business know who's actually doing deals or not? There's no HUDs. There's no HUDs. There's no public records like the MLS.
Yeah.
If you're a realtor, I do 30 deals a year. I do 100 deals a year. No problem. We go to MLS.
Yep.
All right. Is
You can see
Steve
it.
doing 30 deals a year? Is he not?
On a wholesale, there's no record of you really in it,
Right.
unless you do show the HUDs. 100%. We've had some young people work with us, and then like they see success, a little bit of success, and they're like, "Oh, I could do this on my own." It's like you're only dealing with like acquisitions, like you ain't dealing with the back end, the marketing, pulling the list, doing all this stuff. And then when on social media, when you see everybody crushing it, they're only showing their success,
Right.
So, and I'm guilty of it too. It's not like we're always showing like the bad stuff happens. We try to here and there, but it's so, people don't even realize what it does take.
Right. So, all right. So you invested and then you went into this. How close? Because pro forma is a funny thing, right? So before I even ask this question, since you're in the commercial world, can you explain simply what pro forma is?
The pro forma is like your projections of what the property is going to do.
Yeah.
And so the immediate, like 1 year projection for me is like the most important. What can I do immediately to this property within a short time period, less like a year or less, where I can add as much value, and where is the property going to be worth at that point in time?
Right.
And then that way I can say, okay, is this deal worth it? Almost like looking at a rehab. When you rehab a house, I buy it for this, I'll fix it up, I want to sell it for this.
Right.
But beyond that, you kind of have to use like industry standards of like rent increases are 5% per year or 3% per year, along with expenses increasing 3 to 5% per year.
Right.
Even though self-storage has had rents increase to like 12, 15% per year in 2020, 2021, 2022, that's not the standard. So you have to use, standards in the industry to kind of use your projections, but it's also just kind of a guess, in reality, because we don't know what's going to happen with interest rates or anything else in the world, really.
Right.
So it's all kind of just a projection.
So when you bought this, you reached out directly to the owner.
Yep.
So was it listed on LoopNet or CoStar?
No, it was direct mail piece.
Mhm.
And literally he said, and this was like why I think you can speak your wife into existence, is he literally told us the night before he told his wife he should sell the property. And then the next morning he's like, I never checked my mail. Today I checked my mail and it was your postcard, your letter. I got your letter and we called you and
Got it.
the fit.
How close were your projections to the final numbers?
Yep. So we just sold it. So we were super ahead of projections,
Mhm.
like very ahead of projections. We're very conservative when we do our underwriting for these types of deals. And luckily we structured the deal great. And then
Mhm.
there was so much add value so immediately that we turned a 5 cap deal, which was really a 7 cap market.
Mhm.
And we got that 5 cap property into a 12 cap in like 6 months.
So taking a step back for everyone that's listening, caps. What is a 5, a 7, a 12 cap?
So a cap rate is essentially like if you bought the property all cash, it's your cash on cash return,
Mhm.
essentially. And so we were new to self storage and new to this market in Sebring, Florida. So we called brokers in the area, like, what would a self storage property, trade for in this market?
Mhm.
And they said a 7 cap. So meaning that people in this area buying self storage, if they bought it all cash, they would want a 7% cash on cash return for that asset.
Mhm.
These sellers wanted a 5 cap, which is like 30% higher
Right.
price than what was the market price would be.
Mhm.
But we were willing to pay that price, one, because we got good terms. And number two, there was immediate add value that didn't really require capital expenditures. They didn't really require putting more money into the property.
Got it. So it's like for the house perspective, it's like a wholetail,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like it didn't require very much work, and
Yeah.
you can immediately sell
Yeah.
it for more.
Exactly. Little paint, little lipstick, stuff like
Yeah.
that. For us, it was he had a tree company that was utilizing this large single story building.
Mm.
And so he sold the business, which is why he sold the self storage because it was on one parcel. And they ran the self storage as this just extra income. They weren't really trying to maximize that. They had a very successful tree business. So they sold the tree business. They move out. We moved a tenant in for like $17.50 a month. That drastically increases the value of the property,
Mm.
increases the income. And then we had the rent was pretty much 50% below market. So we were able to, we did all the add value first
Mhm.
because it was right in the middle of COVID. And then we increased everybody's rent. Literally, one lady moved out who had 3 units, everybody else stayed. And we literally just doubled the rent. So it was immediate add value without really having to do much else.
Got it. And so you said like 2.5 years ago. So like you just exited this property.
We sold it on February 28th.
So this is not a simple flip.
We probably could have sold it right away.
Mhm.
But my intention getting into self storage was never to sell them. Like I was like, I have my wholesale business that makes me money. Like I want to hold these for long term wealth.
Mhm.
But when from being in a mastermind with self storage, these guys were all packaging facilities and selling them off, and I was like, should I be doing that? And
Yeah.
they're like, well, you got to look at your return on equity. You're making this much money per month on cash flow. If you sold it after costs and everything, what would you net? And so if you can net $1 million and you're only making, $30,000 a year, well, then you're making like 3% on your money. Would
Mhm.
you make more than 3% if you had that $1 million cash?
Mhm.
Yes, we can make 20+% returns on a lot of deals. And so it only makes sense to sell that property unless it's like a class A facility that we feel like is a legacy asset where we're going to hold it for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm young, I'm not retiring. It only makes sense to move it and buy something else bigger
So
and maximize return.
being in a different room causes you to ask different questions.
100%, yeah.
So you bought this with the intent, I'm going to hold this forever.
Essentially.
And then someone's like, hey, Alex, you're not realizing that the $1 million from this self storage could yield a much better return elsewhere.
Exactly.
And that's the power of being in the right rooms.
Exactly. 100%.
So, first deal, I mean, I don't think that's a grand slam. I think that's a World Series grand slam, right? Like $1 million after a couple of years. How about your second, third, and fourth?
Yep. So we still own our second property. Our third was in Lake Placid, and that was very close to Sebring. So we
Mhm.
had economies of scale because we used our property manager to manage the other property as well. So we sold that one as a package together. That one I think was like 800,000 profit. We owned it like a year and a half. So that was a great deal. Also, not a ton of add value with work on that one. That guy wanted to sell it and retire, but he wanted all his money because he was wanting to go overseas and all this stuff. And so on that one, it was literally he was utilizing like 12 units for himself, had family members in them that weren't paying, and his rents were slightly lower too. So for us, it was like getting all the people who weren't paying out, getting actual customers in, raising rents. We had to do some roofs and cut back the trees, but it was very easily done. And we sold that one. We doubled the value of that one as well in a year and a half.
So it sounds like for everyone that's listening, like self-storage is really easy.
It is actually the rehab's not as like the add value could be very easy. Expansion's probably the more difficult part of adding value to a property. But overall, they're metal boxes. So there's only so much things you can do. There's no tenants, no toilets. You don't have to renovate the kitchen, the backsplash, and do this. And you'll have, people essentially not paying you. You have to evict them. Like you have to do evictions on self-storage, but
it's not
it's quicker.
A legal nightmare.
It's not a legal nightmare. It's 30 days and you'll know, well, they haven't paid me. Where it's just easier to get them out in a self-storage facility.
Because I think, was it Fernando that was on the show, right? He was like, yeah, like self-storage is just a no-brainer because it just always does well. And I think, I'm trying to remember, like he had some crazy thing. It was like, I have $50 million in cash now after I sold my last one. What should I do, right? It's like, is it just that easy?
Yeah, that's good.
So, all right. So for everyone that's listening, and I know we're talking about private money on today's episode, and we're going to get there, right? But on the way to get the private money, it was a success track record in self-storage. So for someone that's listening right now, it's like, hey, I want to get into self-storage. What do they have to do to get into self-storage?
Really, I would say educate yourself first. And there's plenty, obviously, we put up a lot of value out there on YouTube. There's definitely other guys coaching on self-storage as well. But most people who ask me about self-storage are like other wholesalers. And so what I typically tell them is like, it's just changing the list.
Right.
It's literally marketing, sales, changing the list, asking different questions, different lead sheet with different information you got to ask. But essentially, it's the same process. You just have to know how to underwrite it, how to underwrite that asset and look at a profit and loss statement and just start doing the same thing you're already doing with wholesale.
Okay. So changing who you're marketing to is the big thing. And, we just had Cody Dover. He was in here. He came in the same time as you. Right. He's in CG Select. And he's like, yeah, doing houses is fine and all, but land's more interesting because you can just add a zero to it. So all you got to do is just change your list.
Yeah.
Right. And I've actually said this, might not be a popular opinion, but realtors and wholesalers are the same people. They just market to different people.
Yeah.
Right. They just market to a different list. Right. But for all intents and purposes, they're doing the same thing. Right. Exit's different, but they're basically doing the same thing.
See that?
Right. And so you're just saying just market to a different list. All the other tools are the same. CRM, dialer.
Yeah. CRM. So we had to we have our custom CRM. So we had to retrofit it a little bit for self-storage, add some different tabs and whatnot. But pretty much most CRMs are flexible enough that you can do that. Right. Dialer, same. Everything else pretty much same tools.
So then let's dive into the list then, right? Because we had Stratton on the show a couple of months ago.
Right, Daddy.
And he's having a wonderful time in self-storage. Again, it just seems like a gold rush at the moment, right?
Yeah.
So all he does is just pulls a list and just calls them. So what list do you pull if you want to get into self-storage?
So each area or city, county might be different, but sometimes they're classified as mini warehouses. So there's data providers like Data Axle, Info USA that you can call those guys up and ask them what's the category, the code for self-storage facilities in this area, and they'll probably typically advise you. But you might pull a mini warehouse stuff, and you'll get weird stuff like people's weird 1-unit buildings and stuff like that. But you just got to weed those processes out. You can actually build your own list with a VA overseas, kind of going on parcel maps and build your own list. We use Yardi Matrix, which helps us get bigger facilities. They only really do 25,000 square feet and bigger. It's a very expensive, yearly membership to have that. That's been our most success. But we do direct mail. We cold call and do direct mail, but direct mail has been out of our 9 deals have been 8 of the deals through direct mail.
Got it. The Yardi Matrix.
Yardi Matrix.
You want to spell that?
YARDI Matrix. I talk about it a lot, and I ask for a referral fee, but no, they don't do that.
They don't do that. At least it reduce your costs.
I know, right? Something.
Yeah. Okay. So you're pulling that list, and you know we had Devin Robinson, right? He was at Select a couple weeks ago, and man, what he was sharing with me as far as AI goes, right? Like what we're doing today, actually, we're using one of the AI things that he talked about right on today's show, to chop up the video. But he was talking about how there was a new one. I wrote it down somewhere. I have to find it. Where like you just tell AI this is what I want, and it'll tell you all the properties that match that criteria.
Oh, shit.
Right? Because they can just scrape public records easily, right? Because
Wow.
before, like you had to get bots and all this other stuff. Now he's like, there's literally AI tools out there that say, go scrape this. This is what I want, and they can compile that list for you.
I believe it.
So the data companies are going to have a little bit of a crunch,
Yeah.
I think, in the near future.
Yeah. Hopefully reduce some costs. So I'm all for it.
Yeah. Okay. So then beyond the list, is there anything else? Like right now, someone's listening, right? And maybe their wholesaling business isn't where they want it to be. You know, last year, the year before, they're crushing it. This year, they're kind of, trying to make ends meet.
Yeah.
How difficult would the transition be for someone that's, had success in wholesaling, but right now is like treading water to transition into self-storage?
I think it could be an easy transition, but you have to realize that like wholesaling is like immediate cash money. And so the reason I didn't get started in self-storage earlier was like I needed capital. Like
you need active income.
I need active income. This is more like I call it like my savings account. Like I'm gonna build it up, and then eventually I'm gonna get a big chunk of money. And you can charge acquisition fees when you're raising money and whatnot to get upfront capital. But typically, you're gonna pour that money back into your business anyway. So it's maybe a little bit difficult, but if you have capital aside, I've talked to people who are like, I want to get into wholesaling, and they have money. I'm like, you should probably get into multifamily or self-storage or a bigger asset class.
Yeah.
So if you have capital and you have the wherewithal to not need the active income every month coming in, then I think going into a bigger asset class, whether it's self-storage, industrial, multifamily, is the way to go.
Yeah, and Paul Sparks and I, we talk about this quite a bit in the Whale Club, which is like you should have 2 different income. You have one that's reliable.
Yeah.
Month in, month out, you're making money over here.
Yeah.
Right? You can pay the bills with this one.
Yeah.
And over here, this is like the moonshots, right? Like we don't know when this is gonna pop. When it pops, it's gonna be real good.
Yeah, I like that.
Right. And that's kind of sounds like what you're doing over here.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I almost, because I'm like not so involved with the day-to-day of my wholesale operation, I tell a lot of people like I feel like my wholesale business is almost like my passive income. Like it's running, it's coming. I could project every single month like what we're gonna get, and then we have rentals as well. But I typically just keep that money aside. I don't really spend that passive income.
Right.
But yeah, 100%. That the wholesale money is my day-to-day, paying my bills, living life, and then the self-storage is like not depending on it, but I know it's gonna be big pops in the future.
Right. So like it's inconsistent, but when it's great, it's amazing.
It's amazing. I had a good year.
All right. So now the next part is the private money. So talk to me, right? Like $30 million is a significant amount of money to raise.
Yeah.
Right. You don't just wake up one day and say, hey, you know what? I need about $30 million. So talk to me about this journey, how you went from, wholesaling to, well, I guess, did you have private money before you did self-storage?
Yes. So I got private money starting to do rehabs. Luckily, one of my best friends was doing really well with like internet marketing. And so he was my first lender. We were buying houses from like tax deed auction and then through our wholesale company, rehabs. And he would fund the whole deal. We split the deals 50-50, did a good number of deals with him. And then
So before you continue, right? So everyone is listening, because I think this is one of the things that people kind of get wrong, where like, whether it's hard money, private money, whatever, it's like when you're getting started, you don't need to make 80-90% of the profits.
Yes.
You could start off in 50-50, right? If I got Alex's money, I'll source the deal, run the flip, deal with the subs, right? As a small operator, and then sell it on the MLS. I'll do all the work.
Yeah.
You fund the down payment, the closing costs, the rehab, the draws, and all
Everything.
these things. All right.
Makes it super easy. I always say like a little bit of something's better than 100% of nothing.
Yeah.
So if you get a piece of it, you get experience, you build up track record, then you can maybe start being a little bit more demanding or try to change the terms. But whatever you got to do to get that first deal, start utilizing people's capital to propel yourself forward.
Yeah.
You got to do what you got to do.
So when I started off, everything was 50-50.
Oh.
And then we evolved to 70-30. And then we evolved now, it's just 10% of interest that we borrow.
Yeah.
Right. No. And they still fund everything, right? The down payment, the closing costs, the rehab.
Yep.
And it's just 10%, no payments until we close again.
Yep.
So you start off 50-50 with an internet marketing guy. That's
Yep.
a friend of yours.
Yep.
Okay. So continue.
So after that, through a lady that I sold properties to, I sold a couple of her properties that were rentals in like Kissimmee Point, Siena. She actually asked me, do you ever borrow people's capital to do deals? Like, you just sold these 4 houses. I got this capital sitting here. And I was like, yes, I do. So I had the track record. So I went to her house, pitched her, these are deals we've done, bought and sold. This is what we can do for you. This is what it looks like. We have a mortgage, a note, a lender's policy, an insurance policy. This is how you're protected. And then she lent me some money. Did a deal with her, and then did another deal with her. She gave me a referral for somebody, did a deal with her and her friend. And then she's like, well, bring the deals to me first before you bring them to my friend. And I was like, okay, no problem. So I started bringing her deals, and she a lot of times never said no. And so I just kept building a relationship with her. And we did a mobile home park deal. She went to us on that as an equity partner. And we just started doing a lot more deals together here and there. I had some other investors on the side, but majority of that 30 million has been from her, single investor, where we've been just turning her money on different rehabs, new builds, mobile home parks, self-storage now.
So really, it was one person, which is a friend, to a person that you bought her properties, a referral. I mean, really, just like 3 main players got you $30 million.
100%. And actually, right before I met her, going back to like manifesting your life, I went to a private money boot camp with Alan Cowgill in Jacksonville. Went to that boot camp. He talked about writing down your goals and what you're going to accomplish and how much you're going to raise, and wrote down my goals, speaking my goals in the morning, manifesting it. She calls me, and my goal was like, I'm going to raise 500 grand in the next 90 days. She calls me and she's like, do you ever borrow money for investment? It's like, literally, you can speak your life into existence. So that what actually I feel like propelled me to get to her, and then that has led to many millions of dollars.
The key, though, there's a few different things here, is a track record.
Yep.
And doing what you said you were gonna do.
Yeah.
Which sounds really easy. But for some reason, it's not how it works, right? I've had the unfortunate situation where I was dragged into a lawsuit, which I had no responsibility in, because there was another influencer in our space, right, who borrowed money and then didn't pay his private money person back.
Wow.
Right? And this was not like a small amount of money. It was like $250,000. And I got dragged into it. It was like, wow, like people you think should have their stuff together.
Yeah.
And teach it and get paid while teaching it.
Wow.
Don't necessarily
that's terrible.
have their stuff together. Right. So yeah. So do what you say you're gonna do is a big thing.
Yeah, I lost not tremendously, but there was a deal where it took too long. We put so much money, we overdid it, didn't get the price we wanted. I lost, I think, like 6-9 grand. She made like $40,000. And so she got paid in full exactly what she wanted to get. She was supposed to get. We just did a refinance on a property. We had to put $20K into the refinance. I owned this property for like 3 years on a rehab. Massive issues. Contractor stole from me. Code violations. Getting shut down with reg tagged. And she got all her money. She got everything. I'm still on the property. Luckily, appreciation has helped. But I have a lot of my personal money into the deal. But she's fully paid.
They get paid.
And taken care of always.
Yeah. I mean, I had a situation, I've talked about it last year, where, we got caught with a few properties with the, massive correction in Phoenix. And I called the lender. It's like, hey, on this deal, I just want you to know, I'm really short on this one, right? Like, I think between 3 properties, we lost 70 grand last year, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, look, I'm gonna need you to carry this note for like at least another month after we close, right? So I think after we close, I still owed her like $37K, which we paid her the next month, right? But it was an adult conversation.
Communication.
Hey, so here's the situation we're in, right? We're in a nuclear winter right now in real estate, at least in the Phoenix market. And we got hosed on this deal and we don't have a ton of revenue coming in. Give me a month, I'll make you whole.
Oh.
And I think it ended up being 5 weeks. Like, hey, can I just have one more week?
Yeah,
Right.
if you communicate and you tell them what's going on, they're more than typical willing to work with you. You
Right.
just got to have those conversations.
Yeah, nothing drives people crazier than silence,
For sure.
right? Because then they start making up their own stories and like, what's going on with my money? Am I
Yeah.
gonna find this guy and so on? So, we talked about this. We touched on this, right? So we're in collective genius together,
Yep.
and you would not leave me alone when we were playing basketball. So I think you were talking to Aaron about that earlier.
Yeah.
So talk to me about, because you said, Preston Ely, Ron LeGrand, you're going to something in Idaho next week. Like, you're constantly out there
Yeah.
working on yourself. What's so important about working on yourself?
And it's like it's everything essentially.
Mhm.
Like, you don't know what you don't know, and so in the beginning was like I thought I was doing good, but there's all these people doing a lot better, and like,
Yeah.
oh wow, like you have to be open to that experience. You got to
Mhm.
know you're never gonna know like self storage is a thing, or this is going good, or you can be this successful, or you can do bigger deals unless you get into those right rooms. And
Mhm.
so I continue to educate myself because every time I go to an event, there's just a little tweak, a little something that just can exponentially grow the business, and or just the right connections, being in
Mhm.
the right rooms with those right people who, will fund the next deal or bring you in as a partner on this deal. So I made great relationships with people in those masterminds, like lifelong friends,
Mhm.
or our families travel together now, and those types of things. And then the education is nonstop. Like, every time I'm in those rooms, I pick up something, we implement it, game changer, and it just helps us propel forward. It's accountability as well.
Yeah.
You're in those rooms with those guys, and you say you're going to go on stage and say, "I'm going to do this, this, and this. This is what
Mhm.
I'm working on," and then the next quarter or whatnot, if you're not doing it, if you're not propelling forward, they're going to keep you accountable.
Right.
So it's accountability, it's pushing yourself forward, it's getting the right mindset, and then staying in touch with what's going on in the market. Because
Mhm.
like a lot of those guys are like very high level also, and they know, like, they see what's changing, they see what's working, what's not working. So it's just being on top of your business and being all in.
Yeah. And I like, again, like the example you used a moment ago, where like you intended to buy and hold this property, but someone's like, well, if you got $1 million in equity here and you're making 30,000, like that's pretty good, but that's not what you can do on your own if you had $1 million in your cash in your
Yeah.
hand.
Return on equity was never a word I even heard before,
Yeah.
and I've been in real estate and finance for a while.
Right. Yeah. You talk about these different things when you're in different rooms, right? Like I saw a couple notes here. We didn't even really talk about it, but like initial rate of return, right? Like you don't learn about this stuff in college,
Yeah.
right? You might watch some YouTube videos on it, but like when someone says IRR, you're like, I will what? Right. So
Yeah.
being in the right room has definitely helped you out. And we got to get in and out with Fitzgerald,
Yeah.
right? At our last event, he came in at like 12:40
Long walk, couple miles to
Yeah.
in and out.
to get in and out, and we couldn't even get a freaking Uber. It was so far. Like we walked to in and out, and we couldn't take an Uber back. And then somewhere along the way, you started a call center.
Yes. Wamasu Media.
Yeah. What was the reasoning for starting a cold calling center?
So we actually just wanted to do it ourselves. So in 2019 at Raf Vargas's event, one of my other lenders was
Mhm.
my business partner now, Scott Morris. He would fund deals with me to buy and hold.
Mhm.
He had a very successful business. He would fund a bunch of deals. He's like, oh, like, how can we do more business together? I went to that event. He used to have like a call center in Fort Lauderdale. I sold leads to folks as well. And so that business ended for him, and and I went to Raf's event. I was like, yo, this is how we can probably do business together. Cause we weren't doing cold calling at all. I'm like, these guys are doing cold calling. Like, we can kind of replicate your operation
Mhm.
and, do a lot of leads. And we're just thinking about it for ourselves. So we sourced some cold callers in Colombia. Never really worked out. We actually flew to Colombia, trained them up, but then they just went south. Like, they just
Yeah.
weren't that great. So he's like, I'm gonna move to Colombia. and I'll get and build an office for ourselves. We'll get like 10 people for ourselves. And this is like right before COVID. And so it was going good for us. And then through social media, someone reached out to me about trying to help them go from rehabbing to wholesaling and like be like their mentor.
Mhm.
And so we helped them, start a wholesale operation. And they're like, well, how do we get cold callers? Like, can you just, have cold callers? Can you just get us some cold callers? I'm like, yeah. So we're like, okay. So we did that. They were super successful. And it kind of just spread out word of mouth. We didn't
Yeah.
haven't done like really any marketing at all for our call center. And through speaking at it at masterminds, and then one or two people use us, they're doing successful. Then all these other people want to start utilizing us, and it just kind of built a business. We actually
Yeah.
thought about building the CRM business,
Mhm.
but actually talking with Ken Clothier, who's one of the masterminds I'm in, he's like, "There's a reason I'm not in that business. The business that you should be in is this call center. Like, do
Right.
this." And so we kind of went full force on that and started really growing that business out, all through word of mouth and just providing great service.
Gotcha. Um, so running a call center, I have multiple fears. So when you're running a call center, there's two different things, right? First, you've got to manage VAs. And so you're managing VAs, like there's a lot of things we can control, right? Systems, processes, and all these other things. But the one thing we can never control, at least you shouldn't be able to control, right? Are other people.
Yeah.
So you got VAs in Colombia,
So what actually makes us a lot different, they're all under one roof.
right?
So they come to office. They're not VAs. They're like essentially team members for us.
Got
They're
it.
not virtual assistants. They're coming into office. They're team members. And Scott literally lives out there. So
Mhm.
he's there managing the day to day.
So this is an
He's operating it.
actual brick and mortar operation.
Yep, 12,000 square feet. We just moved into a brand new office overlooking the city. Awesome setup,
Mhm.
great culture. He's built a machine like this before, so it's literally he knows what he's doing. He has departments, the teams, the team leads. Like he's a beast that for the culture he's created over there and the jobs we've been able to create. Where literally architects and engineers will work for us calling because they can make just as much money there with
Mm.
us doing cold calling compared to their job as a professional, you know, architect.
Right.
Crazy.
So that's the first fear. So you guys have that figured out with the brick and
Yeah.
mortar. Second fear, when the leads aren't good, it's your fault, right? So I did some lead gen for a while. I
Huh.
want to say like in 2016, around there, right? And like I get complaints like the leads are no good. I was like, no, these leads are pretty good because I'm closing these leads. This is how I run my business.
Yeah.
The leads are good.
Yeah.
It might be you, right? So how do you deal with someone that I guess has one of two things, right? Either complain about the lead quality when it's their data,
Yep.
or B, again, going through what we had last year, decide not to pay their bills anymore.
Yeah. So we have so Scott says, I want all the smoke. Like give me buy the data from us. Like if it's my fault, I want it to be our fault.
Okay.
So
you guys are providing the data as well.
So we also have a data company, skip trace company, so we
Mhm.
can do everything for you. We'll also obviously take your data and call your data for you and everything else. But to say, hey, it's us, like let us pull the data, let us do everything for you, and we're gonna make you successful. But
Mhm.
then also you gotta make sure they're calling the leads. Are they
Right.
doing what they're doing? Are
Mhm.
do they know how to close? And so the way we kind of get around that a lot of times is we're very strict on who we take. So
Got
if
it.
you don't have an operation, if you don't have a back end, if you don't have a processes and systems in place to get deal flow, because the way we do cold calling is more like almost PPC type leads.
Mhm.
Like they're highly qualified leads. And so you need to have people ready for like live transfers who are on the leads right away. And it's not something where, you get what we call like a heartbeat in the home. You're just getting your own data back confirmed that someone picked up the phone and you're
Yeah.
like, hey, this is Susie, but she has no why, you don't have a price or anything. Like we're qualifying these leads. So for
Mhm.
our office in Orlando, we're like 1 in 16, 1 in 15 with our cold call leads.
Got it. So we've talked a lot about wholesale, self-storage, and cold calling. It appears in this conversation you're more passionate about the cold calling than you are the self-storage. Am I reading this right or am I completely off?
Oh, completely off. Scott does everything with the cold calling. I don't really do much. What I love about it is how well Scott has built a machine over there.
Got it.
Like he has helped us build a better culture in business for our offices in Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
Self-storage is my passion. Like I love self-storage. It's great. It's super exciting to be able to go full cycle on 3 deals. And we got 3 deals. We're working on a development deal in Tallahassee where we already own the property and we're expanding that asset. So we're doing a syndication raise on that right now.
Got it.
And then we have 3 deals under contract right now that are all also seller financing. So I love in self-storage, want to continue to grow that business. That's where my future and that's where I'm leading the company.
That's what makes sense to me.
100%, yes.
I'm just saying, based off the energy level here, it seems like you like the cold calling. I was like, that seems weird.
No, for sure. Self-storage for sure. Scott gives me excitement. Scott, if you've met Scott before,
met Scott, yeah.
He's very energetic. So he rubs off on me when I talk about it. I'm just kind of regurgitating what he says.
Got it. Okay, so, thinking back to when you started off with your brother in your first year just wholesaling versus where you are today, like how different is your life?
Night and day. Yeah. From working out of our house that he lived with me in, 2 separate computers and kind of like running from appointment to appointment because all face-to-face sales at that point we were doing to now where we're picking up, last month we picked up 54 deals where we didn't see any of them. And I literally don't know any of the addresses, of those properties. And he handles all that. And I'm literally able to focus on raising money, finding self-storage deals, kind of growing another business and kind of replicating what we grew for the wholesale operation. That's what we're looking to do with this with the self-storage business is kind of replicate that same model and just start building the team for self-storage so we can continue to grow that business and take over.
My name is Ryan Weimer with Offer Now, Idaho, and this is why you should join Ren and Steve's sales training. We run a 7-figure wholesaling operation out of Boise, Idaho, with about 16 team members. We were struggling with accountability, we were struggling with deal flow, we were struggling with overall consistency in our business. This sales leadership training has been completely life-changing for us. It's netted us over 6 figures already just in the 3 months that we've been doing it. It's going to net us well over 7 figures in our first year doing it with them. Really what it gave us was clarity. We were struggling for years and years to really identify what our problem was for why we couldn't scale it to where we wanted to scale it. And it turned out we had a people problem. We were always like, is it a process problem? Is it a people problem? Are we just not good leaders? Are we not cut out for this? It made it very clear we had a people issue, and Ren and Steve gave us the structure to implement. As of today, we have 19 signed contracts in our pipeline, which is our highest ever at one given time. Why doing this with Ren is so amazing. Ren is just, if you want to level up your team, like sign up with Ren. This guy has a completely different charisma than anyone you've ever been around. He's your guy if you want to have massive success. My only regret is not doing this sooner. I think it's probably cost us multiple 6 figures, a lot of sleepless nights, some self-doubt, anguish about ourselves, and like wondering why we weren't doing things correctly. Like really, if we had implemented this years ago, we'd be so much further ahead right now. So I can't recommend this enough. Really, if you're on the fence, you should be asking yourself, like, what is the opportunity cost of me not doing this? Because it's substantial.
Got it. What has been your biggest victory, right, or some of your biggest victories from starting to where you are today? What are the ones you look back and you're like, man, I can't believe we did that?
I think starting to build a team and culture in our office is a huge victory. Like a lot of people talk about turnover with the acquisitions. Like we have some turnover, but we have a core group of acquisition agents who've been with us for three plus years, where they're growing with us. We're trying to provide different opportunities where they're doing self-storage with me as well. They're locking up deals with self-storage, and we want to continue to grow that up. And so that's been a very important to us, that like building a team, because before it was just me and my brother doing everything. And so that's a huge win. And then just kind of being very successful in self-storage, like going into that marketplace and that different asset class and having great success, being able to do what we've done already, but there's so much more to do. Like being in those rooms, I'm like, I know Fernando and stuff like that, like they're crushing it on that. And that's because they're so focused with self-storage. I've only been doing this for 2.5 years. So I'm going all in self-storage and making sure that's my all that I'm doing. And we're going to continue to grow that business.
What freedom does real estate afford you?
It allows us to, spend time with my family and travel and have, you know, uh, real great experiences, memorable experiences with my daughter, my wife, my parents, where we can pretty much go wherever we want and enjoy life and see new things and experience new things. And that's what I like most about it. And then it also allows us to, um, create jobs, like being able to create 200 jobs in Colombia,
Yeah,
pretty huge.
it is.
And so it's awesome. It's great.
What is your why?
My why is family, like family, you know, memories, bringing um, our family together and just being able to do whatever we want. Like 2 weeks, we're gonna go to a place on the beach, on the water. Bring my whole family out there to have a great time, take care of everything. No worries, and know that the businesses are running without where I can fully focus on just being with the family, not having to look at my phone and do that. And so my family is my why, but I also like being able to help other people grow their businesses. So
Mhm.
like I've had several mentees who have been very successful and growing. So it's also awesome to be able to pour into other people and see them grow and see them succeed
Yeah.
and start taking down assets, start building $1 million companies. Like that's I love that as well.
You're saying your whole family. What is your whole family to go to the beach?
So it's like my parents, my sister, her kids, my wife, my daughter, my brother, his wife, his kids. So like that's like
That's
the
the
core,
whole family.
the
It's the
core
tribe.
core family. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean that's huge, right? Like,
Yeah.
we haven't done it again. We didn't do it last year, but the year before, being able to go to Hawaii for like a whole week, right, with the kids and my parents and her parents,
Yeah.
and it's like it is dope.
Yeah.
It's hard for me as an entrepreneur to enjoy it for more than 2 or 3 days, but
Yeah.
it was cool to be able to do that.
I'm always working a little bit. I always bring my laptop and I wake up earlier than everybody else. So I'm just banging out work and here
That's
and
what
there.
I was doing. They're
Yeah.
like, "What's wrong with you?" I was like, I don't know. I just can't disconnect."
Yeah, we went to the Maldives for our honeymoon, and my wife's like, "You can't bring your laptop." I'm like, "I'm obviously bringing my laptop. Like, you get ready. I'll do work. You're good."
Right. What is your biggest struggle right now?
The big struggle is like trying to find like higher, always like better team members.
Mhm.
Looking to grow, especially in the self storage business. Like people who have maybe experience in self storage, growing that team there, and not having to. So it's just finding good people. I think
Yeah.
it's tough.
What are you doing about that?
Um, I'm putting out ads. I'm talking to people in masterminds and getting referrals. I get some referrals from I guess like a storage company just let off a bunch of people. I got some referrals there. Missed some people by like a day, a week
Mhm.
on some opportunities. They got hired quickly. So just continuing to go out there, talk about it, talk about what we're doing, and just trying to gauge interest and show what we're doing and putting that out there
Mhm.
and hopefully attract some people.
Yeah, I mean that's the hardest thing consistently, right? Because we were saying earlier, like the hardest thing is controlling, managing people, but the other thing too is like finding the good ones.
Yeah.
It's just because generally speaking, the good ones are taken,
Yeah.
right? It's
Got to
like
poach almost.
you not almost like you
You have to,
absolutely have to poach, and
yeah.
that's the hardest thing. How do you stay motivated?
Well, to go back real quick on that, like I just was at like a local meetup and someone was talking about like, hey, like this guy works for self storage. I think he would be good for you. Like, he knows you, he follows you. Like, and some of these guys been with certain companies for a long time and they don't even get equity. I'd be like, I would bring someone over who has a lot of experience and give them a piece of equity. So
Mhm.
if you're out there, let me know. But
Yeah.
that's what you gotta do. You gotta poach.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we like to have people participate in the upside, so it's profit share.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think that's brilliant. That's the best way to get the best people.
Yes.
How do you stay motivated?
Um, Family. I think, looking at my family and my
Mhm.
daughter and showing her like what we um want and what we be able to travel and do everything we want to do. Like I think I don't really feel like I need motivation. Like I wake up and I'm like, I'm ready to
Mhm.
grind. I'm like kind of like you, like 2 or 3 days, you're like, okay, well, I gotta do something. Like so like I'm,
Yeah.
I'm very self-driven. And so I stay pretty motivated. I want to like be successful. I want to be the best. So I try to be the best at everything I do. And so I think family would probably be the biggest impact to motivate me. The why.
Yeah. And how will you measure success?
I think I'm successful right now. I think we're very successful. But there's always more, and there's always better things you can do, and
Mhm.
to be able to give back more, to be able to hire 200 people to 300 people, to be able to provide more jobs, more opportunities, not only for our staff but for our family and friends, and pour into other people. I think not only us being successful, but having others be successful who work under us, alongside us, investors, employees, everybody seeing success.
What is your superpower?
I think my superpower is like speed of implementation, like getting a good idea and implementing it right away. So like, I'm at masterminds where I pick up that one thing, like I'm like on it. I'm like, yo, Scott just heard this. Hey, you have to go do this. Let's do this, implement this. Like putting those things into action right away. When something like hits really good for us, like I'm like, oh, we got to do this. And like, I don't let anything stop. I'm like literally taking action right then and there to make sure we implement whatever I just heard that was like that key thing that could help us.
How do you know it's the right one to implement?
You never know. Like we've done some things where like, hey, let's do this, and it's like that didn't pan out so well, or that didn't work out. But obviously, you just gotta recalibrate and talk to mentors and people you can who are in your corner and say, hey, like we're trying to do this. Like, what do you didn't really work out? What do you think? And it's like, oh well, maybe for you that's not the best thing to do. Like, look at something else. And so it's just learning. It's always learning. You're gonna have some failure, but you always gotta fail forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I'm just curious. Like, you go to these masterminds, you hear all these great ideas, and what happens is like you got like 18 great ideas.
Yeah.
So, are you picking one and only one?
For sure, 1-2 things max, because there's definitely a lot of stuff going on. And so sometimes when you have those 1 or 2 things, like I might like kind of like block off everything and kind of just focus on networking and building relationships rather than trying to like dive into like learning more, taking a lot more in. So I think building relationships in those masterminds is very key in seeking that opportunity.
Got it. What is your biggest regret in business?
I think my biggest regret is not, I talked about this a lot, is on my social media, is those 3 years of me and my brother doing 5 deals a month. I wish I went bigger earlier. I wish I got myself back into those rooms earlier. So that way I could be where I am now 3 years ago, and then who knows where I've been.
I think that's the same exact answer as Strat. I think you're just copying and pasting here.
Oh yeah.
Are you also Mark Evans?
No, I'm not in that mastermind.
Okay, because I think that's the one that's like, I think that's the biggest one of Mark Evans. Like, you got to think bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess ask another way is, you worked with a guy for 3 years, you're loyal, and then you do wholesaling for 3 years. Do you think, if you look back, could you have started self-storage earlier, or that was just that track you had to take?
I could have started earlier. So in 2017 is actually when I first got Scott Meyer's education stuff to learn self-storage. But I never implemented it because I felt like I needed that income coming, and I wanted to go all in. Right. And so I didn't feel like I could go half in, because at that point I had no team. It was me and my brother, and I was going on appointments. So if I started doing self-storage, well, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to live? So right. That was like my, I wish I should have been better at saving money at that point in time and not just like spending it all every time I came in spending it. And if I was in a different position with capital, I think I probably could have went self-storage earlier and then obviously been way more ahead.
Got it. How did you learn your greatest lesson?
Greatest lesson. So I think being my greatest lesson being I should have went bigger, faster. That I would say just by doing where I'm at now and saying, damn, it was not that hard. So by implementing what I learned and what I see other people doing, I can say like, wow, like I should have done this a lot earlier, and it's only now makes more sense to continue to go bigger and bigger, like seek bigger opportunities.
Right. So, you're already doing some pretty big things. So if you're talking about bigger opportunities, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about now 100,000 square foot self-storage sites? Or are we talking about different asset classes? What does that mean? So
same asset class, but just doing more and going after bigger ones. So like a lot of the ones we bought before were like 15,000 to like 25,000 square feet. We just closed our biggest one in May. That was outside of Houston. That's 80,000 square feet on 7 acres. Got like 200 parking spots. That was also seller financing. Like, so going after those bigger assets and then just doing more of them. We're building that one in Tallahassee I mentioned. That's going to be 80,000 net rentable square feet as well. So doing the bigger deals, because they're roughly the same, it's just different, like a zero at the end of it. But
Right.
the process is the same, the legwork's the same essentially, and just really focusing on and putting, manifesting and putting into my goals the acquisition of bigger assets and just trying to do more of them.
Gotcha. Which failure did you learn the most from?
Um, I probably learned some failures from like hiring. The first couple hires were awful, like bad assistants,
Hmm.
just didn't go anywhere. I'd hire assistant, but still do everything, and so just really, I think with um, there's these other guys similar to predictive index team architects, like
Hmm.
utilizing those systems and those personality tests to hire the right people and put them in the right seats. I think was like a big change for us
Hmm.
because I would literally hire whoever and then a family member or this. My brother's probably the only family member that worked out. Everything else is kind of like, eh. So just hiring is probably the best. That one part.
Um, what resource helped you get better at hiring?
What so both those two. So team architects. So in boardroom mastermind I'm in, there's a company. It's called Team Architects. Very similar to like predictive index,
Hmm.
where you can, but they have like avatars. So like they have like acquisition avatar where they take this test and it lets you know if they're fit that avatar. And so it's probably similar to predictive index. We just started utilizing predictive
Hmm.
index ourselves. But team architects is probably the thing that really got me started with hiring the right people.
Yeah, I was on a call yesterday with a mentee, and he also has other people that he mentors, right? And so he's like, hey, someone asked me like, should I get predictive index? Like, well, I don't know. Like, depends on the situation. Like, tell me about
Yeah.
their situation. And he said, there are a couple of guys who are doing this like crazy numbers. Like, oh yeah, they should definitely have predictive index, right? And there's other people like, yeah, you're hiring like a first or second person. You don't need predictive index, right?
Yeah.
It's nice to have, but you don't need it, right? But yeah, at the end of it, I was basically saying like, I would never hire another person ever again if I didn't have predictive index because it's so
Yeah.
key in letting me know what I'm about to get into, what this relationship is going to look like.
Yeah.
Not exactly, but we have a pretty good idea, right?
Yeah. So on the team architects one, like this guy had a lot of timeshare experience.
Mhm.
He scored terrible on this test, saying he was going to be good. What's a good sales acquisition guy? And we're like, man, like let's give him a try. We like he's got experience. He saying all the right things. We put him in there, and it was like right away. You knew like after a week, 2 weeks of training, we're like, this is not a fit. Like we
Yeah.
should have listened to the test.
Right.
And so they work. It works. So you gotta those right tools that put
Mhm.
people in the right seats. Definitely got to utilize.
That was absolutely key. What book have you gifted more than any other?
Think and Grow Rich, I think, is the book that I've actually given. Probably the only book I've actually given to people.
What kind of feedback do you get from that?
Um, Unfortunately, some of them were giving it to friends I'm trying to like bring up,
Mhm.
and honestly, I don't even know if they read it.
Yeah.
I think my brothers probably implemented it, but it's some of the people don't get it. Unfortunately.
When I bring that up because I've had like that's one of the books that I love. I
Yeah.
love this book, and there are people that are like don't, and it's like
Yeah.
they don't finish it,
Yeah.
and it's like the one of the biggest lessons in the book is whether you can finish something.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, so you can't finish a book whose lesson is about finishing things,
Yeah.
right? And so again, that's the reason why I asked the question because like I've suggested it, and they're like, that's a tough read. And to which I was like, oh, that sucks for you.
Yeah, man, I could put it down. It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And I was like, I literally in my past I put a thing about like buying all those books and like giving it to schools.
Mhm.
Like that's like something I would have wanted to do in the future because
Yeah.
it's such a like it just opens your mind to like what's really possible.
Exactly. So I want you to think about some last thoughts you want to leave the listeners with. Guys, as we said, we just launched our sales community. A lot of different people will push things that will help you do more deals. And I think that's great. At the same time, we believe that sales is more crucial today than ever before. And the reason why not as many people push sales training, I believe, is because it's harder to teach and it's easier to just sell your product. Again, I genuinely believe that if you can learn sales skills, you will make a lot more money faster you were in timeshare. Would you agree with this?
1,000%.
Right.
Oh.
So salesdisruptors.com. If you're interested, we've got a community. We have about 100 people in there now. Sales assassins across the country. We're doing 2 to 3 trainings a week. I think you guys should be in there. And also you have access to my sales masterclass, which we normally charge $3,000 for. And then, subscribe. Don't keep us a secret. Alex and I talked about a wide range of topics, but I think topics that would be helpful for a good chunk of you guys, whether you're doing self-storage or not. I think there's a lot of good information here that might be helpful. Help us reach more people. And then make sure you tune in next week. We got Chris Burrow coming on the show. So last thoughts. What would you like to leave all the listeners with?
I think it's my superpower, and you can implement it in your life, is speed of implementation.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone talks to you about real estate, you're interested in it, like take action. Start doing the actions that it takes to be successful. Start talking to people, start making offers. There's so many people. I think the number one thing I hear from people is, I can't get my deal. And when you ask them what they're actually doing, they're barely doing anything.
Right.
And it's like, if you're about it, like mindset's definitely key. I think you have to start reading some books and start knowing how to have a great mindset, because you're going to get told no a lot more than you're going to get told yes.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have a positive mindset, but you have to take massive action. And so the quicker you can take action, the better. And so it's all about speed of implementation. Once you have that idea, you listen to this, you're into storage, that strikes something in you, take action. Start learning about it, start making offers, start building a list, and just do it. Like, you got to go all in.
You just got to go. If someone wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
My Instagram's probably a great place to go to see what we're doing and also get a hold of us. It's at alex.theinvestor.quezada, Quezada. If they're interested in investing in self-storage deals alongside with us, our website's Vault Ventures, like a bank vault, ventures.net/investor club. And you can go out there and see future opportunities that we're putting out there. And we got a lot of things in the pipeline. And so.
Vault Ventures, I like it a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for watching. See you guys all next week.
Shout out to Steve Trang. Jump on the Steve Trang. We real estate disruptors.